This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Voters are heading to the polls in Morocco for the country's general election. The main opposition, Justice and Development Party, is expected to score highly, although it's unlikely that any one party will emerge with the majority. Of the 325 seats up for grabs, 30 national posts are reserved for women. Our correspondent Anbar has been speaking to some of the women vying for the seats in the country's new parliament.
On the campaign trail in Casablanca, this woman is the new face of a small liberal party in Morocco's legislative elections. The bee is her party's logo. She wants the rivals. She's ready to sting if need be.
I was always a very independent woman, and I wanted to belong to a new way of doing in politics.
Another candidate, Bassima Haqqawi, urges her supporters to vote for her party. She said in Islam she found the best remedies to the problems her country faces.
In the 80s, politics were dominated by the left. I never had leftist tendencies, nor did I agree with their tactics based on violence. So I decided to join an Islamic movement.
Khadija Riyadi won't take part in the elections, but she will monitor them. She was recently chosen as president of one of Morocco's biggest human rights watchdogs.
Elections and the forming of new governments and parliaments cannot be seen as a democratic event, and therefore we cannot talk about an improvement in the political process in Morocco.
Three faces from different backgrounds, united to improve the status of women in their country, but each has her own concerns.
First of all, I am a Moroccan citizen. Of course, I can hide my religion. I am a Jewish, and I am very well known as a Jewish woman. But till now, I never till today, had a problem because I'm a Jewish.
Voters tend to trust women candidates more than men, but when it comes to casting their ballots, they vote for male candidates, and probably there's a psychological reason for that.
Khadija, on the other hand, seems less optimistic. She shows me photos of her lying on the ground after she was beaten by the police while taking part in a rally. Margie faces the difficult task of convincing people to vote for her, despite her being Jewish. For Bassima, symbols such as the veil and the beard are personal issues. The future of her country is all that really counts. Anbar, Al Jazeera, Casablanca.
Terrorists struck again in Algeria in the eastern city of Batna. A suicide operation targeted a crowd of Algerians waiting to welcome their president, Abdelaziz Bouteflika. 19 people were killed in this attack and 60 were injured, according to the most recent account. President Bouteflika affirmed his commitment to national reconciliation. He resumed his visit to the city of Batna and attended the funeral processions of the victims. Suhair Salem reports.
The joy of Batna's citizens in the eastern part of Algeria quickly transformed into sadness and tears. Hundreds of citizens gathered on this street to welcome the president, Abdelaziz Bouteflika. But before the arrival of the presidential procession, a suspected individual tried to cut through the security line, according to the Algerian Minister of Interior. The suspect ran away as soon as he was discovered, and the blast happened immediately afterwards.
We will not renounce the national reconciliation policy and the aims of civil harmony, not now nor in the future.
The attack gave a clear message and carried the fingerprints of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, killing and injuring dozens of individuals. As soon as the Algerian president heard about the blast, he rushed to visit and console the victims in Al-Medina hospital.
We say to the extremists on all sides that there is no alternative to reconciliation. Embrace the unity of voices for the sake of the Algerian people and Algeria. The Batna attack reminded the Algerians of earlier years that they thought would never be repeated once the National Reconciliation Initiative was adopted.
Bouteflika seems committed to this initiative at any cost, in spite of the refusal of the Salafist group for preaching in combat to adhere to the open-hand policy. Instead, they resorted to an escalation of violence through suicide operations, which they started 5 months ago with a bloody attack on April 11th that targeted the headquarters of the Prime Minister's office and the police station in the capital. According to observers, suicide attacks were an alternative that armed groups have resorted to after their influence waned and their numbers decreased to about 500 members.
Good evening, and we open with this breaking story. According to foreign press reports, Syria today announced that its air defense forces fired on Israeli aircraft overnight after the planes allegedly crossed into Syrian airspace. The official went on to say that the incident took place along Syria's northeastern border with Turkey. Here in Israel, the army spokesman's office would only say it does not respond to this kind of report. And we will, of course, bring you up to date the moment we have more information on that story. Meanwhile, clashes today in Gaza between IDF troops and Palestinian terrorists as soldiers backed by tanks and bulldozers moved about half a mile into the Gaza Strip. The operation came a day after Defense Minister Barak said that a broad operation inside the Gaza Strip was inevitable. We get more in this report from Dennis Zinn.
The IDF today continued its operations in and around the Gaza Strip to thwart terrorist attempts to launch Qassam missiles at the western Negev. 3 terrorists were killed near the southern town of Khan Yunis after they opened fire at troops in the area. 2 were identified as Hamas members, and the third, an Islamic Jihad activist. Sources in the Southern Command today said, while these small, quick incursions into the Gaza Strip do upset the terrorist activities, the only way to eliminate the Qassam threat is to conduct massive and sustained operations. The sources said that yesterday's cabinet decision to refrain from such an action was influenced by the government's desire to maintain relative quiet on the Gazan front for now. This due to the current tensions on the Syrian border, the impending high holiday season, and last but not least, the Washington summit scheduled for November. Last night, following the Security Cabinet debate, at a function held by the military industries, Defense Minister Ehud Barak told his audience, the writing is on the wall and Israel is close to embarking on a ground operation in the Gaza Strip. He said he has ordered his ministry to examine the legal aspects of Gazan dependence on Israel, explaining that he may decide on punitive measures, such as the cessation of the supply of water and fuel, as a prelude to a large-scale military incursion. This, he added, would not involve conquering and holding territory. Barak's proposals were supported by Ministers Avi Dichter and Chaim Ramon. Dennis Zinn, IBA News.
دانت روسيا قيام الطيران الإسرائيلي المعادي بالتسلل إلى الأجواء السورية مطالبة.
Russia condemned Israeli violations of Syrian airspace, calling on Israel to stop such actions. A statement by the Foreign Ministry says that violation of Syrian airspace and sovereignty is unacceptable according to all international laws. It reiterated that Russia is very concerned over such actions, especially since the Middle East is witnessing increased tensions. The statement called on Israel to stop carrying out such actions. Media and educated professionals view Israel's behavior as a continuation of its aggression, reaffirming the reality that Israel does not want and is not prepared for peace, and that its actions in the region prove this.
Israel has been an aggressive state for the past 60 years. It robbed Palestine, it robbed the Syrian territories in the Golan, it robbed southern Lebanon, the Sinai, in the West Bank. It is an expansionist state. It is a racist state. But this is not strange. We call on the international community to put an end to these Israeli violations. We call on the UN and the Security Council to pass a resolution to protect the Arab countries from Israeli arrogance.
Of course, we were astonished that this happened when there are discussions about a peace conference being proposed by the United States. The Arab League have demanded a peace conference in which all the Arab states are represented, especially Syria and Lebanon. At a time like this, Israel is taking provocative actions. It is part of the well-known trait of Israel, which always tries to draw the region into side conflicts every time there are positive possibilities on the horizon. Thus, Israel reveals its known intentions, which have never changed ever since it was created. It reveals Israel's greediness in the region and its malice towards Syria. This is understood by everyone. The Arab Parliament stands by our brothers in Syria in this situation, which was totally unexpected. The Hebrew state is all about violations, aggressions, breaches, and nothing else.
Joining us from Cairo via satellite, the media professional, Azazi Al-Azazi. Yesterday, the Israeli president spoke from Rome about Israel going in the direction of peace. However, only a few hours later, this Israeli aggression took place. How should we look at this duality, if that is the right expression for these Israeli statements and the Israeli actions on the ground?
في الواقع ليس جديدا على العمل الإسرائيلي ولا على التصريحات الإسرائيلية أن تعمل في ظل تناقض.
Actually, these actions and statements are not new to Israel. It is not new for Tel Aviv to contradict its political decisions, as has been done historically and strategically, and which is well known. Meaning, they say one thing and they do the opposite. It was not just the statement of the Israeli president, but the statements of many people in the past 2 months who said that there were no intentions by decision makers in Israel to attack Syria. And despite such statements, this air violation happened. The reality is that this action demonstrates the failure of Israel to achieve its objectives in the region. It is also a failure of the American project to intervene in Iraq and isolate Iran and Syria, as has been done in the past few years. The failure of Israeli power is the first motivation for this air raid, which sends messages within Israel. In other words, it was aimed at raising morale domestically and nothing more. If it was a political message to the region, it was aimed first at Syria and Iran, and second at Hezbollah, as well as the Arab region. However, 1 year after the Israeli-Lebanese war and after the steadfastness and victory of the resistance with the support of Syria and Iran, Israel felt that Zionist power in this region was no longer convincing and has come under major doubt. This has been discussed by international experts, military analysts, and strategists. This failure is the main motivation for carrying out this politically and strategically stupid action.
بالمعنى السياسي وبالمعنى الاستراتيجي والتي لا أعتقد أنها مراميها لا سياسيا ولا استراتيجيا ولا عسكريا.
The residents of Barda village in southwestern Jenin face a great deal of suffering due to the Israeli occupation's policies at the main checkpoint.
Barda's checkpoint, or Barda's crossing point as the Israeli occupation likes to call it, is located southwestern of Jenin. The policies of the Israelis at this checkpoint reflect the ugly racism of occupation. This checkpoint is also an example of the Israeli policy of apartheid. If you were to visit this checkpoint, which is not recommended, you will be faced with electronic gates and inspection chambers where the most sophisticated sophisticated techniques of oppression are used. Citizens who have no choice but to go through this checkpoint are subjected to the same scrutiny that Palestinians are subjected to at airports and international crossings.
Citizens suffer on a daily basis, whether they try to get in or out of the village. In 2003, the occupation authorities made it mandatory for Palestinians to obtain special visas whenever they want to go into an area outside the wall. Citizens have no choice but to acquire these visas.
Employees for the Palestinian Authority living in the Barda'a are also forced to go through this infamous checkpoint every day. They are forced to wait more than 2 hours whenever they want to go to Jenin. Not to mention that the apartheid wall and the oppressive checkpoint are built on Palestinian lands, where Israel has confiscated more than 500 dunums of the village. The village is now completely isolated from the rest of the West Bank.
We are subjected to all kinds of poor treatment and oppression at this Israeli checkpoint. When we come back from our jobs, we are forced to wait no less than an hour. In the morning, we have to wait more than half an hour.
The movement of the native residents of this village is completely restricted at this checkpoint, while the movement of the Israeli settlers is not restricted at all, so they are free to commit acts of sabotage against the Palestinians and their lands. 75-year-old Kamila Ibrahim was the latest victim of the Israeli checkpoint in Barda'a. She died while waiting at this checkpoint because the Israeli occupation soldiers forced her to wait as she was on her way to a hospital in Jenin. Her martyrdom is a testimony of the Israeli occupation's brutality.
I coordinated with the ambulance, but the Israelis did not let it pass. We were forced to transport her in a private car. Of course, she died at the checkpoint while she was waiting.
Palestinian civil institutions try as much as possible to ease the suffering of the Palestinian people despite all Israeli obstacles.
We have more than 5,000 citizens who live behind the wall that was built by Israel. The wall separated us from our agricultural land and public institutions that offer health and social services. These institutions cannot operate if they are disconnected from each other. We have been able to surmount some obstacles, but we could not overcome other issues due to deliberate lack of cooperation by the Israelis.
From the governorate of Jenin, Nizar Samoudi, Palestine Television.
The Pentagon said that 7 troops were killed in 2 separate attacks in Anbar and Nenawa. 4 U.S. Marines were killed in what was described as a combat operation in Anbar province in western Iraq, and 3 others were killed by a roadside bomb in Nenawa province in northern Iraq. Meanwhile, an official from the Iraqi Interior Ministry said that the government has allocated $100 million for the reconstruction of this unstable region. The Al-Anbar Council held an economic conference in Al-Ramadi, which was attended by tribal chiefs and American officials to discuss the reconstruction of the city. This comes after Bush's surprise visit earlier this week.
الأنبار ثلث مساحة العراق ولا حدود مع نصف دول
Al-Anbar province covers 1/3 of Iraq's surface area. It shares borders with half of Iraq's neighbors, including Syria, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. Several months ago, this province, located west of Baghdad, was declared the only Iraqi province outside American control. It was in the hands of armed groups. Now, everything has changed. The American president walks comfortably in the large desert of Anbar. Bush's message is that this province, where his army was losing, has been transformed into a success story. He is meeting with Iraqi political leaders and tribal chiefs in an area that used to be the stronghold of a fierce rebellion. The Anbar Council and tribal chiefs coordinated their efforts to expel the so-called terrorists, and therefore it is not appropriate to leave their province in a state of destruction and disarray. This explains why the American army, along with the Anbar political leaders, held the largest economic conference so far with the objective of rebuilding the city. $70 million was quickly allocated to reconstruction. An additional $50 million was earmarked for the provision of compensation. It is not a secret that the residents of Anbar province suffer from a lack of public services. The infrastructure, especially in Ramadi, is in a state of near paralysis. Most of its important buildings were destroyed during battles. Many of Anbar's residents hope that this kind of economic conference will revive their province to the way it used to be. No other Iraqi province has witnessed as many battles as Anbar did. Security may not last long in Anbar province, but it may last long enough to allow the province to be presented as a success story to the American Congress a few days from now.
US President George W. Bush and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin failed to make clear progress in talks to defuse tensions over US missile defense plans. The presidents met in Sydney as 21 nations attending an Asia-Pacific summit agreed a common statement on climate change after intense wrangling between rich and emerging nations. Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC Forum delegates have been struggling to hammer out a statement on climate change, with emerging nations resisting Australia's plans to set clearer goals on curbing emissions of greenhouse gases. A series of protests marred the meeting, and there was a tense but brief standoff between police and demonstrators at one event.
Al-Qaeda is said to have found a safe haven in Pakistan. But are they getting stronger? Is there anything new in bin Laden's new video message? And what chance is there that he and his supporters can be beaten? The answers to these questions and more on Link TV's Mosaic Intelligence Report.
According to a 5-page threat assessment report compiled by the National Counter-Terrorism Center titled Al-Qaeda Better Positioned to Strike the West, the terrorist network is gaining strength and has established a safe haven in the remote tribal areas of western Pakistan for training and planning attacks. Al-Qaeda is reorganizing and is increasingly confident of its ability to conduct attacks against Western or US targets. It's operating in Iraq, and homegrown terrorists inspired by the group are increasing around the world, attracting money and fighters. The latest terror plots uncovered in Germany and Denmark are a sobering reminder of a persistent danger to American interests overseas.
I extend my thanks to the federal and state police forces, whose months of work managed to prevent a terrorist attack. This is a major success.
But are Americans any safer at home? Al-Qaeda's media production company, As-Sahab, released a new video message by Osama bin Laden ahead of the 6-year anniversary of 9/11 attacks on the US. For the past day, a banner ad on the terror group's website posted a message which translates from Arabic. Soon, God willing, a video message by the Lion Sheikh Osama bin Laden, may God protect him. The terror site ad for the video shows a photograph of bin Laden with a completely black beard. something that has already started a media buzz. Why does his beard look much darker, shorter and more rounded than in 2004, when it was streaked with gray and appeared unkempt? Why is he looking healthier than expected? Perhaps more important than this speculation is the question of what bin Laden had to say. The usual threats were absent, and bin Laden invited Americans to embrace Islam. He talked about the U.S. economy, the U.S. Congress, the war in Iraq, and Chomsky.
Despite America being the greatest economic power and possessing the most powerful and up-to-date military arsenals as well, and despite its spending on this war and on its military, which is more than what the entire world spends on its armies, and despite it being the major state influencing the policies of the world, as if it has a monopoly on the unjust right of veto, despite all of this, 19 young men were able, by the grace of Allah the Most High, to change the direction of its compass.
There is enough footage on the tape to drive intelligence agencies berserk, looking for clues to indicate when the tape was produced and whether it offers new leads to his whereabouts. But enough of this. There is some good news, and that too from a most unlikely place, Iraq. In Anbar province, home of the Sunni insurgency, it seems that Al-Qaeda fighters have been driven out by local tribes. And in Lebanon, where Fath al-Islam and Al-Qaeda wannabe has also been routed out by the Lebanese army, something that only proves that terrorism can only be defeated from within and not by invading armies. Of course, bin Laden chose not to comment on Al-Qaeda's defeats on the anniversary of 9/11. I'm Jamal Dejani for the Mosaic Intelligence Report. To learn more about this program or to share your thoughts, visit us at linktv.org/mosaic. Hi, I'm Jamal Dejani, producer of the show you've just been watching. I'm here to tell you that thanks to viewers like you, we've already raised over 10% of our Mosaic fundraising goal. We are getting closer to keeping Mosaic on the air for the rest of the year. However, we still have a long way to go to keep this kind of reporting free and uncensored on Link TV. Over the past few days, you've heard from some of our biggest supporters, people like Amy Goodman, Dr. James Zogby, and Sandeep Roy. They came out because they believe in what Mosaic brings. Now we're asking you to do your part. Call 1-866-485-8848 and make your donation today. Or go to linktv.org and just click on the support button. Every donation makes a difference. For a $200 donation, we can continue to send you one more show online and by podcast. For a $400 donation, we can produce another Mosaic Intelligence Report. Or for a very generous tax-deductible $1,000 donation, you can join the Mosaic Producer Circle. You'll get to tour the studios, meet the staff, and see firsthand how this Peabody Award-winning show is made. Pick up that phone and call 1-866-485-8848 or go online to linktv.org. We need to hear from you before the summer is over to keep Mosaic going. I'm confident that with your support, we will reach our goal. Mosaic simply cannot happen anywhere else. I have made more than 1,400 episodes of Mosaic and never had to censor anything because of threats from advertisers, corporate underwriters, or the administration. That's because at Link TV, the bottom line is you, the viewer. Mosaic represents freedom of speech, the power of information, and access to uncensored news. In this time of war, these things are needed more than ever. Call Link TV now at 1-866-485-8848. Go to linktv.org. Thank you for your commitment and for making Mosaic part of your life.
Mosaic needs your support. Help us reach our goal to raise $200,000 by the end of the year to keep Mosaic on the air. Pledge your gift today at 1-866-485-8848 or linktv.org. Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.